I am going to take my time. Who am I? I don't believe in justice or fair play. I wound without killing. I break hearts and ruin lives. I am cruel and malicious. The more I am quoted, the more I am believed. I succeed in every level of society. My victims are helpless. They can't protect themselves against me because I have no name and no face. To track me down is impossible. The harder you try, the more elusive I become. Once I tarnish a reputation, it's never the same again. I topple governments and ruin marriages. I destroy careers and cause heartache and sleepless nights. I wreck churches and separate Christians. I create suspicion and generate grief. I make innocent people miserable and angry. Who am I? I am gossip. First slide, please. Gossip is a particularly deadly sin. We trivialize it. I mean, after all, Hollywood stars, we have gossip sites and all those kind of things. Gossip has destroyed more people and damaged more reputations, broken more friendships, split more churches than any other sin. Gossip is quickly told, quickly heard, and quickly spread. Worst of all, gossip is quickly believed. Now, if I were to ask you, what was the first sin recorded in the Bible? You know, if I had answered this a couple of weeks ago, I would have said probably the same thing you do. It's Adam and Eve in the garden. That wasn't the first sin. Next slide. This is Satan, the serpent, talking to Eve. He said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? You will not certainly die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The first sin recorded in the Bible is by Satan. It's gossip and slander. You see, he set Eve up to sin because he told her a lie about God. That's gossip. That's slander. You know, Satan puts in our human nature a craving for negative news. You ever notice that? I looked it up on the internet. What percent do you think of newscasts are negative? 90% of all newscasts are negative. Why do you think that is? You know, a number of years ago, I had the dubious distinction of being the spokesman for the ICOC to the media. And I was on a number of TV shows that I must say were not too encouraging. Some of you remember one particular one about 2020. Well, there was no way to do good, believe me. Because what happened in show after show after show is they set up totally the program and then they'd come to us for comments after they'd already set it up. That was it. And 2020 was a blind ambush. And I talked to the producer after the show. I said, help me here. We gave you plenty of things that were positive about what we've done, and you didn't put a single one in. Why? His comment was very candid. He says, because that does not produce ratings. He said it. People do not want to hear positive news. People want to hear negative things. Why is that? Because God puts that. Let me change that. Satan puts that. That was a bad mistake. Satan puts that in our human nature. That, in fact, is our human nature. Our human nature is Satan-controlled. And Satan in our human nature makes us like negative things. Everywhere you look, it's about that. And of course, now we're going on 2 years of COVID. It's worse than I've ever seen in my 81 years. Fake news, social media, George Floyd type things, the election type things. It's all negative. It's all negative. It's all creating doubts. You know, we've had to actually in Phoenix go after some people on social media for the things that they're putting as Christians on social media. There have been people, disciples, posting on Disciples Today on the Facebook that had to be actually kicked off of Facebook because of the negative things that they were saying. You know, what is God's dream for the Tucson church? You ever ask yourself the question, what does God want for the Tucson church? The answer is the same thing that he wants for the Phoenix church, for the Flagstaff church, for the Boston church, for the Paris church, for churches in China, Jakarta, anywhere in the world. It's the same thing that God wants. God wants as many people in the world to be saved and go to heaven, and take as many people with us as we can. Can I get an amen to that? That's what God wants. Now, if that's what God wants, what do you think Satan is going to try to do? You know, next slide. How does God want to accomplish this? He's laid out the plan for us, but I think that we've got to understand the way that he wants to do it. John chapter 17, verses 20 through 22. I hope that you're well familiar with this. Jesus, his dying prayer in the garden. He continues his prayer and says, I pray also for those who believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am you, that they may be one as we're in one, I and them and you and me, so they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you've loved me. You see, this is God's plan. God's plan is, I'm going to have the people that believe in me be so unified and love each other so much that it's going to stand out in contrast to the rest of the world. And people are going to say, I want that. I want that kind of unity. I want that kind of love. Now the question is that what people see when they look at the Tucson church? Do they see that kind of unity? You know, I am absolutely convinced that the way that Satan fights God, his main weapon is creating disunity. If he can get us disunified, if he can get us fighting against each other, not even fighting, just suspicious of one another. So we're not trusting one another. It's the love is not obvious there for one another. Then Satan is won because we don't have a message to the world. How are we any different than anybody else? You know, my background is the mainline Church of Christ. I grew up in that. And it started in the late 1700s, early 1800s as a unity movement. It was through the Bible, we'll get everybody back together. Today in the mainline Churches of Christ, there are 32 different divisions that don't have anything to do with each other. You think that is a message to the world? You see, that's the way Satan fights us. That's his weapon. Now, how can he get us disunified? By gossip and slander. Same way he started in the garden. The same way he got Eve to sin was creating doubt in her by gossiping and slandering God. That's the way Satan works. I'm convinced that is the number one weapon that Satan uses against the church today. Now, there are many other things, obviously, that he does. But first of all, since we're talking about gossip, next slide, please. What is gossip anyway? Gossip is negative words said about another person who is not present and told to someone who cannot help. That's gossip. Let me read again. Gossip is negative words said about another person who is not present and told to someone who cannot help. Consider Satan in the garden. Who did he talk to? Eve. What's she going to do? What she should have done is go to God. And we'll talk more about that later. But she's just a sitting duck for Satan because he's there talking about God who's not present to a person who can't do anything about it. And she believes it. That's what gossip is. Now, next slide. This is an interesting verse. There's, of course, I'm amazed at how many verses there are in the Bible about gossip and slander. Until I started studying this, I wouldn't have believed. And I think the reason is because God knows how much Satan uses this. But it's interesting, in the book of Proverbs, 2 different places, exactly the same verse are given. Proverbs 18 and Proverbs 26. So the words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to the inmost parts. Isn't that true? I mean, isn't there something about hearing some juicy gossip about somebody that we just take in? And it goes to our inmost parts. It does damage. Now, let's look at some of the verses of how God views gossip. Next slide. There are 6 things the Lord hates. 7 that are detestable to him. That ought to get our attention, right? I mean, if there's a list here of 7 things that's detestable to God, I think we probably ought to pay attention to it. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. Now, how do you stir up conflict in the community? How do you stir up conflict in the church? How do you stir up conflict in the Tucson church? Gossip and slander. That's the number one way that you stir up conflict. Next verse. This is Romans in chapter 1. If you remember Romans chapter 1, this is the verse or the chapter where Paul talks about how believing in God should be obvious. And that it should be obvious to everyone because of all the things in nature, all these other reasons. But he talks about then that people have turned their backs on this. And then further in the chapter, he says this: furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind. So they do what they ought not to be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. And he's going to list them now. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. Would you be proud to be listed as a gossip in that list? I don't think so. I mean, these are things that God hates. Next verse. This is Paul in the closing part of his letter to the church in Corinth. The church in Corinth was an enigma to Paul. He had more problems with the church in Corinth than anywhere else. He starts off in 1 Corinthians 1 talking about divisions in the church there and saying you shouldn't have divisions in the church, and he talks about that. But here's how he closes his second letter to the Corinthians. He said, I'm afraid that when I come, I may not find you as I want you to be, and you may not find me as you want me to be. I fear that there may be discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, slander, gossip, arrogance, and disorder. Next slide. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. That's a pretty strong statement, isn't it? James is saying, if we don't control our tongue, if we're not careful about what we say about other people, he says, you may say you're religious, you may say you're a disciple. It's useless. It's worthless. Because you've invalidated what God is trying to accomplish through you. Now, this next one is a surprising one. Remind the people to be subject to rulers and authorities. That's a little bit surprising, isn't it? Given the fact, at the time that Paul is writing this to Titus, Nero was persecuting Christians. This is in the middle of persecution. People trying to stamp out Christianity. And what's he say? Be subject to rulers and authorities. To Nero, yes. To be obedient. To be ready to do whatever is good, and to slander no one. You mean I can't talk bad about Nero? To be peaceable and considerate, and always to be gentle toward everyone. Yes, that's a hard one. I mean, we're going through probably the messiest political time we've ever gone through, certainly, well, maybe not the Civil War included. But modern times, I mean, consider all the things that have been said about President Obama, President Trump, President Biden. And I'm sure everybody in here, we all have our own opinions about it. Given our opinions, what is Paul saying we ought to be doing? We ought to be subject to the rulers and authorities, whoever's in authority. Yes, even in China, to obedient and ready to do whatever's good, to slander nobody. Nobody is pretty all-inclusive, isn't it? What he's saying is we got to learn to control our tongues, because when we talk negative, who uses it? Satan. We got to remember Satan is the enemy. Satan is the one out to divide. Satan is the one out to destroy. Can he use Nero? Yes. Can he use presidents? Yes. Can he use you and me? Yes, if we'll let him. It's our choice. You know, when we talk about gossip and slander, I think there are two different kinds, generally speaking. Number one, there's a malicious gossip and slander. In other words, we just set out to hurt, to discredit, and whatever. I think for most of us, that's not the category we fall into. Most of our gossip that we're guilty of is not malicious. We'd probably say, I really don't want to hurt so-and-so. I don't want to bring discredit on the church, whatever. But there's another type of gossip, I think, that we got to really be really careful. I call it naive gossip. We don't have necessarily evil intent to sin. But the reason that it works and is a tool of Satan is because Satan fools us into never even thinking about what we're doing. Never even thinking about who we may be hurting. Never even thinking about who it can affect, who is listening to us. Never even thinking about our heart behind it. You know, you don't have to mean to do harm to somebody to hurt somebody. The motive, quite frankly, is irrelevant. You can't use an excuse. I didn't mean to hurt him. I didn't mean to hurt damage the situation. You can't use that excuse because God is warning us what he thinks about gossip and slander. It's wrong under every single situation. You know, if I go up to Donald and say, I think we need to be praying for Kelsey and Jelaine and their marriage. They don't seem to be very happy lately. And I heard Jelaine snap at Kelsey the other day. I think we need to pray for them. Is that good? You know, gossip is never innocent. But we can be deceived in thinking, it's okay. I mean, after all, I just think we need to pray for them. Amen. We need to pray for each other. By the way, Kelsey and Jelaine don't have any problems as far as I know. So. But that's the type of gossip we're quite often guilty of. We don't even think about it. Our tongues are loose. We mention something to somebody else that can do nothing about it, is not a part of the solution, and yet we spread this, and they then spread it to somebody else. Next slide. You remember the old game of telephone? I mean, that's a fun parlor game. Invariably, I mean, I don't know how many times I've played this, and it's never come out to all the end of the line like it started. Because every time it gets changed a little bit. Every time you pass all information to the next person, they then modify it a little bit. Either they don't understand it or they put their own twist on it. And after a while, you go down the line, it's not even no semblance of what it started with. And that's one of the real dangers of gossip. You know, despite how good one's sources are, they're very rarely totally correct. There's almost always extenuating circumstances that we just don't know. And what God would want us to do is give people the benefit of the doubt, rather than passing it on to someone who is not a part of the solution and who is going to probably pass it on to somebody else and even exaggerate it more, because that's usually what happens. I want you to pay attention to this next slide. If you listen to gossip, then you're part of the problem. You see, we can get down on gossipers and slanderers, but the problem is, if you listen to gossip, you're just as much a part of it. What if nobody listens to a gossip? How far does it go? It doesn't go anywhere. You see, it takes a gossiper and a listener to spread. And the expectation, and this is what I really want to convince all of us on this, is if you listen to gossip, you're just as much a part of the problem as the person talking about gossip. Now, here's a way to tell if it's really gossip. There are many different tests you can have, but here's one. Is, would the person be offended if they heard you say it? That's a good test. If they happen to be standing behind you when you told someone, would they be offended that you said that to the other person? Would you be offended if someone said it about you? It didn't come to you. You know, if somebody comes to you with gossip, and quite frankly, we need to test some of these things. I think we've all been guilty of gossip. I certainly have been guilty of gossip. And most of the time, hopefully, it's, quote, naive gossip. But it still does just as much damage. And we need to understand that. But you know, what we have to do is develop the nerve to politely let the other person know the information you're telling them is none of your business. I can't listen to this. This is gossip. How do I tell if I should listen? There may be times that I should listen. The only time I think that I should listen is if I can help fix the problem. If I'm a source of fixing it, then I can hear it. If I'm not a source of helping to fix it, I don't need to hear it. It's only going to hurt me. And if you're going to come and tell me about the Hans marriage, can I help? Then maybe in those circumstances, I can help. But if I'm not in a situation to help and I don't have the intention of helping, I do not want to listen. And we've got to get that conviction. On October the 10th, I preached a forgiveness sermon. I think that's a good starting point for all of us. If you didn't hear it, you don't remember it, go back and listen to it. Because in some instances, we do spread gossip because we got some things we haven't forgiven. And so we're not reluctant to pass on our hurts to someone else. Because naturally, we want sympathy, we want empathy, we want people to understand. And you know, empathy and understanding is good, but not at the cost of somebody else. Not if we're going to tear somebody down to get them to understand us. And so I think that starting point on a lot of these things about gossip and slander is, number one, have I forgiven in the situation I'm concerned about talking about? You say, should I forgive before there's been healing? Absolutely. Because there may not be healing. I mean, there are a lot of instances in your life, in my life, that there will never be healing. And quite frankly, some people are already dead that have sinned against us. There'll never be healing. So the starting point, even before you're talking to other people, even before you're going for help, is in your own heart forgiving. Because that's the unconditional thing. God says, you know, if you don't forgive, then I'm not going to forgive you. God doesn't put conditions on that and says, well, if you don't forgive in certain instances. No, he says, if you don't forgive, then I won't forgive you. So that's a good starting point. And if you need to go back and listen to that sermon, or if there are people that you know that haven't heard that sermon, please go back. And because, again, not because I did such a great job, because there are verses there. There are verses there that are just true. God gives us a way out of feeling what do we do if we have a problem with someone. Next slide. Matthew chapter 18. This is the answer. If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault. Just between the two of you. Now, why do you think he says just between the two of you? Because that's where it stops. It doesn't go any further. There's no gossip. There's no anything else. It's all over with right there. But it's not unheard of that you go to someone and it doesn't get resolved. And you need help. So what do? Go gossip. That's human nature. That's what Satan wants us to do. But he gives us a second step. If you don't get it resolved there, you get somebody else in to help. You take one or two others along with you that can help resolve the whole situation. You see, God gives us the way out. He never leaves us trapped in a situation that we just can't handle things. Now, next slide. Wednesday night, I introduced a new group in the church. I don't know what the name will be, the consensus group, the leadership group, whatever. These people, these 9 people, I think bring a lot to the table. But in this particular situation, I think these are people also that are equipped to help resolve issues. Hopefully, at least one of these persons is a safe place for you. That you can take an issue to them and feel like you can get help in resolving an issue. And so, and obviously we want to give you an opportunity, if you know some reason biblically they should not serve in this role. And this, quite frankly, is not a biblical role. These are not elders. These are not deacons. These are whatever. Hopefully at some point in time, soon, the Tucson church will have elders. You do need elders, but you don't have elders yet. But the church has way outgrown what 2 people can do in leading it. And that's the reason that I have introduced this and totally convinced this is the right thing that's going to help go to the next step for this church. And I think these are people that are eminently qualified. But if you know some reason biblically they should not serve, then let me know by next Wednesday night. My phone number's up there. My email address is up there. So let me know if there's any reason. And if there's not some reason, then they will be introduced as your leadership team, consensus group, whatever you call it. I don't know what name will be there. But I want to sort of close this thing down by giving some dire warnings. You know, we know what God thinks because I've given you verses about what God thinks. God doesn't leave it about this is what I think about it. He goes a step further and issues where we need to go with this. So if we can recover somehow. Next slide. He who goes about talking to hurt people makes secrets known. So do not be with those who talk about others. That's a command of God. If someone goes around slandering and gossiping about other people on an ongoing basis, what does he say to do? Don't be with them. Next slide. Romans chapter 16, verse 17. I urge you, brothers and sisters, to watch out for those who cause divisions and put obstacles in your way that are contrary to the teaching you have learned. Keep away from them. Command of God. This is not a suggestion. Somebody who causes divisions in the church, we need, quite frankly, to not have anything to do with them. Next slide. This is one of the strongest. Warn a divisive person once, and then warn them a second time. After that, have nothing to do with them. Brothers and sisters, this is not God's suggestion. This is a command of God. Why? Because we don't love everybody? We do love everybody. But God knows what gossip and slander will do to a church. And he says you cannot tolerate on an ongoing basis someone who gossips and slanders in the church. And there's a process. You warn that person once. You warn them a second time. And after that, basically, they can't be a part of the church. It's just that clear cut. And that's hard. And hopefully, we'll never see that happen. However, we've got to be willing for that to happen. And we've got to be alarmed enough about gossip. And quite frankly, guys, there's a lot of gossip in the Tucson church. I've now talked to over 60 people in the church. And believe me, there's a lot of gossip in the church. And it's got to stop. Because God will never do what he wants to do with the Tucson church until we get united, until we love one another. You know, gossip is like poison. When it gets in your system, it's hard to get out, isn't it? When you hear something negative about somebody, is it easy just to put it out of your mind? You see, it creates subtle doubts. And then you start looking for things even subtly that will reinforce the doubts. That's the way Satan works in our mind. I want to close with a scripture that I think is the answer to all of this. It's what Gloria and I called the golden rule of communication. We use this as the primary rule or scripture in marriage advice. But it's just as applicable in every single relationship that we have. It says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Apply that test when you're tempted to share news about somebody. Will it fit this test? Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to not your needs, according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. You know, that's my lesson for today. You know, God's dream is for unity. It's the only way we'll ever win the world. It's the only way we'll ever make an impact on Tucson is unified, is unity. It's this group of people and those who are not able to be with us today, loving each other, being one, having a mission to win the world for Jesus Christ, to make a difference, and letting the love for each other show in that way. And we need to be absolutely radical with that. But also, we need to be radical about getting rid of all gossip and slander. Now, there are a lot of people that are not here today. And I hope that you will encourage them to go and listen to this lesson. Everybody needs to hear this lesson. You need to discuss this in your D times. You need to discuss this, those of you who are married, in your marriages, in your relationships. Talk about this. Talk about the temptations for gossip and slander. Talk about how we can overcome it. Ask each other, have I been guilty of that? Have you seen that in me? What can I do to change? Those are the things we need to be doing. And I want to close right now in a prayer as we move on with communion. Father, every single one of us is a mess in the flesh. Every single one of us messes up. There's not a single one of us that have not been guilty at some point in time of gossip and even slander. We pray, Father, for your forgiveness, and we thank you for your mercy. But Father, we want to be what you want us to be. I pray that you will convict us, help us to see us the way that you see us, not the way that Satan sees us, with the love that you show to us, the forgiveness that you're eager to give. But help us, number one, to be able to not to be able to, but to actually to forgive anyone right now that we've not forgiven. And Father, give us the conviction that we will not gossip anymore. We will not slander anymore. And we will not hear gossip anymore. We will not hear slander anymore. We will become the people and we'll become the church that you want us to be. To you we give all the glory and praise. Amen.